Once again, welcome to my simulator. This is Steve with Flight Quest 40. Today we're on the final aspects of our NDB situational awareness single pilot IFR, interpreting the instruments and so forth. A lot of my NDB videos and the automatic direction finder, these previous flights, have really been more about situational awareness, your location in a time period somewhere in the area, around a beacon, around a VOR. It's been a little bit of everything. Well, today this is going to be a final video on the NDB. Previously we've done procedure turns, tracking outbound, tracking inbound. We didn't really do any intercepts on some of the steps. We're going to take a look at some of those today. It'll be a brief flight. What does magnetic heading plus relative bearing equal? Equals the magnetic bearing to the station. If we want to know what bearing from the station is, we can look at the reciprocal of that. If we total up those two numbers, magnetic heading and relative bearing, and they equal more than 360, well, obviously we'd have to subtract 360 from that sum to get our bearing to the station. Let's take a look at some of that. But this isn't about math. This is a way to get rid of the math. We're far too busy in the airplane to do the math. I think the FAA wants us to kind of have a total understanding of really what we're looking at. Where do we get those numbers from? And how do we interpret the ADF and the pointer, a relative bearing, relative meaning relative to the nose of the airplane? And what does it mean tracking to and tracking from? Let me get the airplane started. I'll show you what I put together in a little nav map, and we're going to start flying. Look at that, nearest NDB. Who says there's no NDB beacons out? Actually, this one is associated with the loam. That frequency is 346. I put the liberty of already dialing that in there for us, so we're good to go. All of our frequencies are present. You can look at the approach plate on that one. So as the engine is warming up here, we are slightly warm. Let's just do our checks. I do have a checklist off to the side here. Fuel selectors are on the both. Fuel selector valve is in. I like to use a little right rudder trim for takeoff in this airplane. It's the Skyhawk XP with the 200 horse power engine. Cowl flaps are open. Mixture's leaned out a little bit. Props are forward. Throttle is cracked slightly. Our alternate air, we can check that. Should come out. I have a button for that. Let's see if I can find that. There's the yoke. There's our alternate air. Altimeter shows a change. The vertical speed indicator shows a jump in its amount. That is verified closed. All lights are on. Pitot heat's not required. Circuit breakers are in. Compass 310. We are approximately there. Altimeter, I don't know. Let's see if we can get the ATIS here.
Scattered at 1,300. Broken at 4,000. Temperature 10. Dew point 0. Altimeter 2. Advise on initial contact. You have information. Quebec.
VFR sectional. We are at Greenbrier Valley Airport. It's within an MOA. It is a control tower, Class D airspace with an upper limit of 4,800 feet. Tower common traffic advisory frequencies given for the tower 118.9. We do have approach in there and we'll be good to go. There is I want to show you, this is what I'm referring to. Here is the NDB, and that's actually associated with the loam for the ILS that comes in here. We're just going to be working with some bearings from the station and to the station and do some intercepts real quick, because I haven't really done that in the previous videos, and this should be the final video. After this video, the following weekend or so, I think I have one on the NDB cross country where I use just strictly NDBs with a little bit of side reference of a few VORs just to kind of show our position in relationship to those stations. I know that the NDBs are, I wouldn't say they're a thing of the past, but there's a lot of beacons out there, and they're a lot of fun to practice with for your situational awareness. So that's what this is about. Let's take a look at the next chart I have here. This is little nav map. These are just little distance spikes that I put in, measurement marks. Right click on this and then drag it out. So I put one on the 360 bearing from the station, one on the 90-degree bearing from the station, one on the 130, 155, 255. We have these, I have these as a reference, and I'm going to play my own traffic control. I'm going to be my own approach control or departure control or center or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to give myself self-vectors and get us set up to intercept some of these bearings. And let's take a look at one other aspect here. This is the loam I was talking about, bushy, and in there is that NDB, and you can see the frequency is 346. There we are, V-low. Okay, let's go ahead and taxi out. I'm going to put my yokes back up here. See if I can find the button for it. There we go. Let's take a look and see what we're going to do. Looking at little nav map there, and I have it above me on the upper screen. We're going to depart runway 22 here, and I think what we're going to do is do a right turn outbound. I'm just going to kind of wing this through. And we're going to pick up a heading of approximately 360 and go northbound for our first intercept. All right, Greenbrier Tower, Cessna 172 X-ray Papa with information, holding short of runway 22, ready for takeoff. I'd like to proceed with the vectors in and out of the airport area there, utilizing the NDB. And November 172 X-ray Papa, you are cleared for takeoff from runway 2. After departure, turn right, fly heading 360. All right, cleared for takeoff runway 22. After departure, right turn to 360. And what was that altitude? Oh, that's right. 7-2 X-ray Papa. Climb maintain 5,500. 5,500 for 2 X-ray Papa. Gas undercarriage mixture pumps. Stay on this frequency. We'll work with you. Right turn now, 360. We'll stay on the frequency. X-ray Papa, fly heading 330. Intercept the 360 bearing from Bushy, track that outbound. Heading 330 now for 72 X-ray Papa, climbing to 5,500 for 360 bearing from the station. Power is set, flaps are up, 330. So we know now we are tracking away from the station. So if I ever want to know how much to use to intercept that without doing any math, we know that the bearing is 360. We also know ATC put us on a heading of 330. So that's approximately a 30-degree intercept. So when the angle of correction equals the angle of deflection, we're on course. Straightforward. We are flying away from the station, which means we'll be flying the tail of the needle. And we know that the tail of the needle on the 80 VF, we always drag that up. Hence that old saying, push the head and pull the tail. This is kind of like almost real world stuff. Oh, ATC put me on a 30-degree intercept. In that case, what am I waiting for? My angle of correction, that heading, going to a known bearing is 30 degrees difference. And the tail of the pointer gets drug up to a relative bearing of 30 degrees off the nose of the airplane. We will be, of course, sometimes if we want to, we could put our heading above all of the bearing outbound. And that tells me one thing is that I'm flying outbound. When I look at the head of the pointer, which is approximately at 40, getting drug up to 30. Scroll into this a little bit closer, and there's the 360 bearing from the station. Here's our magnetic heading of 360. The other thing we could do is, well, what do we want to know? We could take this pointer, superimpose it over here, and you see that pointer is 30 degrees off the nose. In other words, on 360, where we have our heading up, that's our bearing from the station, and we'll be flying the tail of the pointer. So from our indications here, I just want to check my compass a little bit. It seems to be off, maybe a bit, not much. 5,500 to go. 500 to go. Well, we do have a wind. It looks like they're giving us about 120 at 7. That's okay. It's a little bit of a tailwind. We're still climbing out. Airspeed about 90. Temperatures look good. Wind is about 35 degrees off the nose of the airplane. Everything happens at once. We're going to intercept the bearing outbound. We're going to reach 5,500. To go. 2 to 3 degrees yet. Probably going to run around 90 knots in here. No reason to 120, but okay, so we're going to level off, zero out the zero vertical speed indicator, do a right turn now because we're intercepting the bearing, 360. Let's just track that outbound into our next radar. Okay, 360, having to hold in a little bit of pressure, so trim that off. I'm going to concentrate on my altitude as well. Let's take a look at the pointer. We are flying the tail of the pointer, and as we see, the head of the pointer is behind us. We are going away from the station. I'm going to go manifold pressure about 21 inches, and let's go the same with prop control. Alright, cruise checks. Lights are off. Power set. Fuel pump is off. Altitude looks good. Let's lean out our fuel. This is my EGT temp. And there it is. I'm going to take out all that incessant bright weather that needs for takeoff. Ball in the center. And let's close our cowboys. Okay, let's take a look at another one. As you see, little nav map here. We are on the bearing outbound. And if we bring our spoke system back up here, I think what we'll do, let's go ahead and we're going to intercept they want us to intercept the 310 bearing from the station and track that in there. Okay, so they'll give us 72 X-ray pop-up. Left turn now, fly heading 300. Left turn now 300 for 72. Turn fly heading 240 for 72 X-ray pop. Alright, that was a 30-degree intercept. We asked ATC to just test us on this. Okay, so they put us on a heading of 240. So when I look at 240, if I were to figure this out, looking at 240, what's the difference between 240 and 310? 70 degrees. So we want to do 310. Why don't we use our heading lever? Just bring that down to 310. That's what we intercept. Now we're going to be flying the head of the pointer. So that tells me, well, gee, which way am I going to turn? I'm going to turn right. Giving you a moment to think about it for there. Remember, well, he hasn't given us the full instructions. We'll wait. So he says, approach comes back 72 X-ray Papa. Yeah, maintain that heading 240, intercept the 31 bearing from the station. Intercept the 31 bearing and track that to Bush. Alright, 5500 on a heading of 240. Intercept the 310 bearing from Bushy and track that to the station. So I know that my bearing is right there. That's from the station. I know my pointer is to the left. So I know, always turn towards the direction of the pointer because it's going to point to the station, point to the course that you have to intercept. Since we're flying the pointer, the head of the pointer is always there. So what's the difference? 240. good. So we're a little bit more here, more than 90 degrees on it. Remember, the pointer's going to drop down. So the difference is, again, 240. Reciprocal of 310. Now, if you ever have any difficulties on that, just kind of come in here and you don't want to do the math real quick. 310 in there, and the reciprocal is 130. So what's this? 130 is 154. So we're looking at about 100 degrees. So we're waiting for the pointer to drop to 100 degrees relative bearing pointer. That will tell us when we're on course. Show us. So we at 240 now. You see we are on.
Attention all aircraft. Greenbrier Valley information. Romeo current. Altimeter 29092.
There's 90 degrees. Even though 240 almost looks 90. 90 plus 20, so 110 is the inbound heading. Or, I'm sorry, 130. So if I wanted to change something up here, I can just go the heading indicator down here to 130. 40, approximately 130. If I wanted to, looking at this, take that needle and superimpose it over here, and when it's at the same kind of angle, there it is approximately. So we're going to start a left turn now to 130, and let's see if that actually brings us to the station. I didn't do any magnetic heading plus relative bearing equals the magnetic bearing to the station, but if we had done that, it would have come up with 130 degrees. Left turn now. Let's see what we get. That's a big turn, so we had the lead. So that's kind of when you're further away from the station, you can almost use a direct intercept to it, and then do that turn left to right 90 degrees. And let's see where we fall out on the pointer. That's 130. We'll move this out of the way. That's 120. 130. Let's just settle in here. Sometimes the big intercepts you won't roll out exactly on bearing to the station. The little nav map shows that we're pretty close. We rolled out a little too soon, so the course is about 5 degrees over. Remember, we're counting degrees. Put this back to north. I just like to keep it right there with that little. So it's showing about 5 degrees right. I'm going to give myself about 20 degrees to the right. So 130 is our bearing to the station. We are on 310 from the station. The situational is, I know I am northwest of the station. So there's 20 degrees. I don't need to do 30 degrees, but we're working on 30, 45, 90 degree approximately intercepts. There's 5500. Everything's in green. 20 degree correction. The head of the pointer drops down. And we'll check our compass to that. We're showing 140 on the compass. We're off a little bit here, so let's fix this. 140, that makes it about 10 degrees. And there we are on 10 degrees, so let's go back to 130. Remember, we have winds are out of about 120, 130, around 10 knots. So we'll have a little course, little wind direction. Winds are coming from about our left-hand side. Let's go back to 130. about 2 or 3 degrees to the right of the course. But a little nav map, you can see we're coming right up in there. If you see my yellow plane flashing on that map on the bottom right hand corner. 72 X-ray, Papa, maintain 5,500. Continue to track direct to the station. 72 Papa X-ray. Now, if we have a wind from the left, it should be pushing us to the opposite side, and then we'll watch the pointer kind of continue to point to the station. So I may want to put a correction in there. If we keep homing to the station, the closer we get, that correction angle gets bigger and bigger. When we home, then we're almost ultimately flying into the wind if we have 20 or 30 mile an hour winds. But I'm showing about 2 or 3 degrees. So I'm going to put in about 5-degree correction. Airplane's trimmed down, everything's in the green, plenty of fuel. So the angle of correction now is 5 degrees, nose left. So we should have ADM pointer right, splitting the field goals. After all of these videos, you will be the Top Gun of the ADM. I don't know if that's worth putting a plaque on your wall or not, but after all of the types of things that we looked at, it almost should just be a no-brainer now flying this. It's still a challenge. You still have to work things out. But I guarantee you, working this, utilizing X-Plane 12 with everything it has to offer, instead of just flying from airport to airport via GPS, practice a little bit of these things and throw a lot of stuff at you, and the flying is it's very enjoyable. It's challenging. The closer we get to the beacon, look at the corrections have to be. We got a 5-degree correction in here. We got a 5-degree deflection, so we're cool. Altitude's a little bit too high. Our goal is to top. Our goal is to cross right over top of this thing. We said our inbound course was 130. Let's go to 130. I want to get the best swing on that needle that I possibly can. We're showing about 2 or 3 degrees to the left, so I'm going to make a little bit of a correction. Maybe 10 degrees. Yeah, 10 degrees at most. Maybe I'll use 8 degrees. No real reason to do that. Okay, so here again. You've seen this stuff in the other videos. So if you wanted to see it's about 11 degrees. I'm going to turn back to about 130 here and see if that got us on course. Little nav map and the bearing pointer won't always be perfectly matched up. Compass looks good. Looks good. We're using the amount of degrees. We're not changing the ADM point. But how do you know which bearing you're on? Well, like you said, when that heading. 130 plus the relative bearing. What's the relative bearing to the station? 0 degrees. So that means magnetic heading plus 0 degree relative bearing equals 130. So the magnetic bearing to the station is 130. See, that time we didn't add anything for the relative 0. Let that sink in for a minute. Magnetic heading plus the relative bearing, which is 0, equals 130. We're applying that magnetic bearing to the station. Okay, here's our station passage. We've been bracketing a little bit all the way through, doing these small changes to see if we can get the gated order to swing smartly around, and it does. A good indication we were right over the top. Good, solid navigation there, folks. Nice job. All right. X-ray Papa. Check the 130 bearing from the station. Expect radar vectors to the 090 bearing from the station. X-ray Papa. Continue tracking Alpha. Now, what's our bearing to the station? Well, let's do the math. What's the amount? Magnetic heading is 130. Okay. So the relative bearing is 180 degrees. Let's see what happens when we total those up. If I asked you, what is the bearing, what's our magnetic bearing back to the station, and we use that math, I'm giving it to you the easiest possible way. Here's something where we have to use the reciprocals. Okay. So if I took bearing, our magnetic heading, 103, well, 130, plus the relative bearing. What's the relative bearing? Well, it's 20 behind us. How many degrees is that? That's 180 degrees. So add that to 130, and what's your total? Total equals, right, 310 degrees. So if you get that question on your instrument grid, which you probably won't, they make it a lot tougher. We can look at that. So 130 plus 180 gives us 310. Well, where's 310 on our heading indicator? I'll be damned, it's a reciprocal. It's the same thing as we had there, but we had to look at the reciprocal. Okay, 72 Papa left turn now, fly heading 060. Left turn to 060. 72 Papa X-ray, watch your altitude. Fly maintain 5,500. 72 X-ray. One more math problem here. They want us to intercept the 090 bearing and track that. Well, we don't know if they want us to track it inbound or outbound yet. Let's do the math. say magnetic heading, 060. What's the relative bearing? What's our angle of correction? They want us to intercept the 090 bearing from the station. Alright, so when I look at 090, obviously 060 works. It is an intercept heading. And that means 30 degrees. We're tracking outbound, so we're looking at the tail. We're dragging that up to it. Suppose we weren't really sure. Okay. I know I have to track it out now, so if I'm really, really unsure, it's like, am I doing right? Remember, the pointer always tells us what direction to turn in. It tells us what side of the airplane the course might be on. I'm not sure. I'm going to go to 090 real quick to see what the pointer tells me. Hey, sometimes it happens. Well, there I am. I'm paralleling the course now. I'm going the same direction as the bearing, but I'm just not on the bearing. But I want to be on that 090. And let's see, you know what I think? So we're going wings level, getting a little closer. I want to be right on it. The pointer is approximately 7 degrees, or 7 to 10 degrees to the left. Well, which way do I turn? Well, check my compass. I'm showing about 0.85 on that. That's what we have here. The pointer shows 10 degrees to the left. I'm going to go back to 060. That's what you're doing to me. That's a 30-degree intercept. And remember, the tail always gets drug up before the head of the pointer drops down. 060. So now I'm waiting for 30 degrees. Look at the head of the pointer. It always drops down, but we are flying the tail. Getting some updrafts here. Pointer's dropping down, and it's getting drug up. By this little margin, it is here or here. Now, if I look up and I see the pointer fell through 30 degrees, there, look, right about on it. So you know what? Let's do our right turn now. Let's look at something. I'm just going to pause this here. There's our heading of 060. That's our magnetic heading. What's our relative bearing to the station? 30 degrees. See if I can get this right. So if we have 60 degrees here, let's see what it tells us if we want to tracking outbound. So there is 60 degrees as our magnetic heading. Our relative bearing, looking at the from side of the pointer or this one, is 30 degrees. So where am I at? What bearing am I at right now? Okay, we said 060 plus the relative bearing, which is 30 degrees off the nose of the airplane for the course, gives me what? 90 degrees. If I took that pointer, the yellow pointer, and put that on my heading indicator, you would see the tail would be on 90 degrees from the station. So in order for me to get to the station, then I would just, at this point, turn left or turn right, and the bearing to the station is 270. That's starting to make sense. That's why we don't do the math, because even though it's simple, it's like, well, do I do it off the head? Do I do it off the tail? Is it 180 degrees? When do I subtract 360? Obviously when the number's bigger. But there you go, 060. Okay, what's my relative bearing? 30 degrees to the left. Okay, that's 90 degrees. All right, but the pointer's pointing to the station. What does that do? That's 90 degrees. I look at the tail on the 90 degree bearing. If the pointer was in front of us and we had these same indications, okay, but the head of the pointer was on the 030 in there, we would look at the tail of the pointer, and guess that would give us, right, 270. So let's take a look at that. Let's do a 180 and track this back to the station. Okay, 060 is my correction. 090 is the outbound course. That's 30 degrees. Tail of the pointer got drummed up to 30, so let's turn outbound now to 090. Let's see what we get. I'll get this out. There's 090. And there we are approximately. Okay, so see? 90 degrees. That's our magnetic heading. What's the relative bearing to the station? Well, we're flying the pointer, so we're flying the tail outbound, so it's 0 degrees. Approximately, or a little bit off the course, but you see 0 degrees is there. So we're flying outbound. We are on the 190 bearing from the station. How do I get back to the station? Let's turn left. Let's have 2 kilo turn left, re-intercept the 090 bearing and track that to the station. Left turn now, fly heading in. 270. If the controller was pretty good, he would just say, fly heading of 240. So let's do that. 240 to intercept. We want to intercept 270 to the station. If we stop at 270, guess what? We are going to parallel. There's some downdrafts again. Let's take a look at that. So we're going inbound 270. That way. What bearing are we on? Alright, so 270. Look at the head of the pointer. Plus about the station. I know it's in front of me. I know I'm on an intercept heading. Paralleled it. It said it was so many degrees to the left. I opted for a 45-degree entry. There's the pointer on 45 degrees. I'm going to turn west now. And the beacon should be on the nose of the airplane at this point. There it is. About 5 degrees to the left. We do have some winds of about 180 up here now, which will push us towards 30, 33. And then the needle's going to swing to the right or swing to the left, which it is doing. So I might put a wind correction angle in there of 10 degrees. I'm going to take a look at a little map up here to see where we're at. And yep, there we are right there. Pretty good. Coming over White Sulphur Springs. 10-degree correction in there. Pointer is on the inside of 10 degrees, so not on the outside of it. And we're about 10 degrees there. Kind of holding this right there around 8 or 9 degrees. That's good as we get closer to the station. Let's see what we got coming up next here. We're going to track one more outbound, and let's go ahead and fly the airplane back inbound to the airport. Some altitude. So we go. So simple. I mean, when you look at this and look at this, it's like, okay, where am I at? Where am I at? Well, I know I'm on the approximate 1090 bearing from the station. Because if I take the CDI and move that over to the heading indicator, or I mean the relative bearing indicator, or pointer, whatever you want to call it, superimpose that on my heading indicator, I say, oh well, east of the station. I'm tracking westbound. There's the station in front of me. Zero wind correction angle there, so the pointer is about 5 degrees to the nose. Off the nose on the left-hand side, so I'm going to correct that. And put a wind correction angle in there about 10 degrees. Nose goes left, the pointer goes right. Split into field goal uprights, 5,500 feet once again. Getting close to the there. Well, we're probably going to intercept the 225 bearing outbound. Tell you what we'll do. Let's say ATC now gives us a left turn to 225. And 723, pop a left turn now station is to my right. Suppose ATC asks us to report our position. Well, we can say we are southeast of Bushi NDB alone. Maybe they'll ask us what bearing from the station we're on. Oh, gee, okay, well, let's take a look at this. Relative bearing from the station, 100 degrees, 120, 130, so 220 is 320, plus 130 is 350. So what's the reciprocal of 350? We can look right here, 350 obviously is 170, so we can say we are 170 bearing from the station. Instead of just saying southeast, we can say we're on 170. Is that possible? Let's see. Let's put in 210, 220. Poor man's ID, poor man's RMI. And we said we were on 350. Well, we've been talking a little bit, but yeah, you can see right there. See 350 to 360. Gives us that, but we know we're looking for the bearing from the station, so we want to look at the tail. And there it is, gave us that, and now we're about the 180 with that heading. If I just hold this heading 220 in there and watch the tail of the pointer, that will tell me the bearing from the station. I am almost bearing from the station. I know, okay, well if I'm flying outbound on 185 or I'm on that bearing, I know that we're flying and heading outbound at 225. We're going to intercept that going inbound. I know it's to the right hand side. The pointer should be pointing to the right hand side. It is. And 72 Papa, right turn now, fly heading is 300. Right turn for 300. Descend and maintain 4,500. I'm going to take that liberty. Say 300, 310. Let's do 310. Maintain 4,500. All right. 310 it is. X-ray, turn right. 340. Right there, 340. Intercept the bearing. Intercept the 225 bearing and track that to the station. Oops. Oops. Reciprocal of 225 is simply 040. That's going to be my inbound course to the airport. Let's see if I can get a closer look at little nav map here. So what's the reciprocal of 225? Yeah, 225, 040. So what's the amount of correction? Right, 40 degrees. So what are we waiting for? Waiting for the pointer to drop. 40 degrees. I'm not even going to change that. That doesn't matter anymore. This means nothing. 50 degrees. Let's go back to 360. That's our intercept head for 040. In the clouds right now. Should be at 4,000 feet. I think I forget. Pointer's dropping down. 10, 20, 30, about 31 degrees. Not quite there yet. Right on the line. Alright. We're going to go in for a landing. And 72 X-ray Papa maintain 4,000 till pushing. You're cleared direct to the airport. There's 40 degrees. Let's do a right turn now. Inbound heading on our approach plate. I think it was 045, so that kind of makes sense. They gave us an intercept heading and we're tracking that to here. Let's see what happens. There's 040. We do want the 045, so let's go ahead and go to 045. Let's see what we got. I don't think the Bushi, Loam, or NDB is exactly lined up with the runway center line. Maybe the ILS is, but
Attention all aircraft. Greenbrier Valley information. Sierra current. Altimeter 29092.
And I already see the runway up in front of us. But you can look at this again, 045. Let's go to 045. Ask you which bearing from the station are we on. That I've created here a little nav map. If I look down here, I see approximately 225. Just remember, we always look at the scale to give us our reciprocal in there, and that works out to our chart. So what's the inbound course to the station? 045. And we're going to cross over the station. Pointer is a little bit to the left. The whole time I'm going to take out some of that correction. 15 degrees. See when the pointer drops down to 15 degrees from that. This is down at this point. Right over top. It's our inbound course, 045. This is the heading for 045 on our heading indicator. One look is all you get. One last look at my little spoke system that I made here in a little nav map for NDB practice and intercepts, and you can kind of pause your simulator, look at little nav map or your navigational program that you use, and you can then go ahead and take a look at your equation. Go magnetic heading plus my relative bearing equals my magnetic bearing, to the station. From the station, and how do I get back to the station? If the two numbers equal more than 360 degrees, just subtract 360 degrees. Get your bearing, and then just, if you need a reciprocal of that, add 180 degrees. That's the magnetic bearing I'm on. So if you can get really good at your math, because you can kind of look at where your airplane's at, you can add up those two numbers, come up with the sum for magnetic bearing. Or, you're going to track outbound or inbound. Use the assigned heading. Look at the bearing to or from the station that you're going to intercept. Look at what the difference is from your heading to that inbound course listed on the paperwork. Turn to the direction of the pointer, the head of the pointer. If you're still with me. And we're still at the same frequency. We are clear until late. And that should do it for NDB. That was kind of more about intercepting and tracking and doing some mathematics in here. You can see when I was doing the math how I lost some of my altitude. Probably have a tailwind here. Yeah, I think we will. Bring more power out. Gas, undercarriage, mixture. Pops can go forward. Get myself slowed down here a bit. I'm just going to pull the nose up. Airplane start to slow power for altitude. Seems to work well. I guess that kind of was like a flight lesson. It's free. Once again, thanks for flying with Flight Quest 40. I hope you enjoyed the time here. I have another video coming up here. I'm trying to work on it. And that should do it for NDB tracking to and from and intercepts without dealing with holding patterns or instrument approaches, and how to make something in a little nav map that you can take your time and kind of understand the magnetic heading, the relative bearing equals this, to the magnetic bearing to the station. How you can take your time and work out the magnetic heading plus the relative bearing is your magnetic bearing. Just need to know, do you need to know are you going to the station or from the station? And work on your situational awareness, tie that into your instrument scan, and you're going to be ready for some nice cross countries and flying into these little airports and using all kinds of navigational aids and enjoying X-Plane for all it's worth. Grab them MDBs while they're still out there. They're a lot of fun. I think we parked in somebody's parking spot.